Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the Remette knives Steed. This is Remette's latest and greatest creation, and yes, it is as good as it gets right now for them. Man, oh man, I have been wishing for some time now that they came out with more premium knives. At this point in time, I think I've probably been one of the guys to make the most amount of content on Remette, or formerly known as QIGMGS. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you can go back to like maybe a year ago. I got their very first knife. It was like a sub $50 little G10 carbon fiber overlay, all blacked out D2 flipper. Had a little hole, little bent wire pocket clip. I gifted it to my father-in-law after, owning it for a couple months. And he is not a knife enthusiast. Okay, let me rephrase that. He loves using knives, but he is used to gas station knives. So he uses and abuses a knife, and a knife is everything. A knife is a spoon, a knife is a hammer, a knife is, I don't know, something you flip burgers with, even with it being a relatively small size. And you know what? I've done just the bare minimum maintenance on that thing. A little bit of cleaning, sharpening, tightening down hardware, reapplying some blue Loctite. That thing's still kicking. The detent on it is solid. The flipping action is just as good as it was when I owned it. So from the very beginning, I have known that this was going to be some good stuff. And I'm very excited that, they're making things like this now, because there's a lot I'm going to go over here. This isn't going to be a super long video because it doesn't really need to be. Most of my videos that are on the longer side, they're either because I really love something and I'm just like rambling and talking everybody's ear off, or I hate it and I'm just completely just nagging about every single last element of the knife, which at that point I wouldn't have spent my money on, because I didn't get this for free. I utilized one of their discounts, a big discount that they had at the time, but right now, actually, there's only a 10%, or excuse me, there's a $10 coupon that you can apply. You can only buy Remette knives comfortably, I will say, on Amazon. They might have them on AliExpress. I don't know. I've never purchased anything from AliExpress. But Amazon, trusted source, direct from Remette's, account or page. They have it listed here. There are plenty available right now. When they dropped, they sold pretty quickly. A lot of people were excited for this, for sure. And I'm glad to see that. I really am, because again, like there's a lot of early signs of wonderful potential from this company, even with just their first little $50 shooter knife. So this guy is $198. You can add that little 10% coupon code if you have Amazon Prime. You probably get free shipping. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I believe that the materials, the fit and finish, in comparison to the big Chinese OEM brands that we know and love, Remette, Tucson even, and actually this feels a whole lot more refined than a lot of Tucsons that I've experienced in the past. And it actually looks like a Tucson, honestly. Like, it has these interesting, design elements that remind me of the days where I owned like a handful of Tucsons, and those were super cool. It was just titanium carbon fiber everywhere. Tie and carbon fiber, that's all it was. Supposed M390, some stuff that was in like 14C or D2. But most of the stuff that I, sought out was in M390. And this is very similar in that sense. So this may not be, Remette level, but I will say that this currently as it is is probably at the quality of fit and finish as we Knife Co. Probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. For being a company this young, that is a huge compliment, because Knife Co. is making, just in my opinion, leaps and bounds in their level of fit and finish, consistency, and the exotic materials that they're using, or at least exotic ideas and designs, and you know, the color schemes that they have been using on a lot of their more recent models. I haven't had a new fancy schmancy knife with, you know, a bunch of different finishes and stuff, because that's not really me. I like a little bit more plain Jane. I don't like super spicy meatball stuff. But this is more my speed. I like, you know, plain Thai, and if I really love it, then I'll anodize it now that I'm, you know, tinkering with that. I love carbon fiber, whether it's plain weave, shred, hammered, textured, whatever you want to, you know, call it, fat carbon. But this is just a standard plain weave stuff. And while it looks like it's contoured, it's actually flat. But the titanium is just rounded off and softened everywhere. It almost feels like it's contoured, and it is a very large knife. You guys know me, or if you guys haven't watched me for a while, this is not really my speed. This is big boy toy territory, and I use little rinky-dink knives in comparison. High quality ones, of course, but this is not something that I'm regularly going to be using, but it's gonna stay in the collection for a while because it is genuinely wonderful. The sound, the feel, and you know what? I did have to tinker with this a little bit. Could be my unit, or it could be a widespread little quality control issue, because Remette has, at this point in time, has been known for you know, having like that one little thing that kind of kills it for a lot of people, whether it's the action or the fit and finish, or maybe the blade material that they're using. And again, they don't have that many models, and especially the ones where people are really going to be super nitpicky about, which are like the premium ones. It's hard, genuinely, it's hard to crap all over a sub $50 knife nowadays. But when you start getting into this price range, almost $200, yeah, it's a little bit easier to start nitpicking about stuff, because you pay for that. We are now in enthusiast territory here, so you expect a little bit more. But something that I absolutely love about Remette is that they have wonderful communication. They are on top of their shit almost all the time, practically immediately when something comes up. And I don't know if it's maybe just one person, or they have a small team of people who are, you know, part of a quality control team or service department. But I have been contacted many times now, you know, asking, hey, like, let me know how this is. Tell me about this. What do you like about it? Any little things, like any little problem with it. And I'm just like, no, or I haven't even had it long enough to be able to like give a genuine complaint. So, and the one little thing that I had with this, actually there's two of them, actually. Two little problems that I had with this knife, and we'll go over them in a little bit. Specs and stuff on Amazon, I'm not the biggest fan of taking off of, but I will be linking them down in the description. You guys can go and look at their Amazon store and see all their pictures with their tactical gloves and the fingertips cut off like hobos. I just think it's funny that that's the aesthetic that they think that people like me are going like. I had this in some basketball shorts today because it's hot right now where I live, and this knife weighs like half a pound, so that was pretty funny. But I'm not wearing hobo tactical gloves, so I'm gonna share with you guys some size comparison knives. My size comparison knives have changed a little bit but I believe that there are enough currently still to get the point across that this is a big boy knife for sure. So it is the exact same length as my Spyderco PM2. Here underneath we have Spyderco Native 5. And when I say this thing is beefy, it has all the beef. Super beefy. Up here is the f5.5 and a Benchmade bug out. I also do have my Demco 8020.5, but it is inside the house and I forgot to grab it. But right here, I actually do have my f5.5 that I am intending to sell. Hopefully it sells, because it doesn't seem like anybody's super interested in a well discounted, essentially brand new f5.5. So put this in right now. It's on NAF sale if anybody's interested. You know, trying to make some money, right? Got to get new stuff for the channel, right? I know, I'm a loser. It's fine. But that's gonna be it for size comparison knives there. So, man, the action on this G10 one, honestly, it's way better than my texture tie that costs like 60-70% more for reasons I don't even know at this point. Maybe because texture tie. Let's get the weight on this real quick. All right, half a pound. All right, yeah, pretty freaking big, right? There's a little brick, 5.2, pretty hefty, right? But you know what? I think it makes up for it. I mean, if you're intending to buy something like this, you need to understand that it's gonna be a big boy. It's gonna be you might be able to chop down a tree or two with it, possibly a small tree, a little sapling, but you probably would get it in just a couple of swings. Ergonomics on this thing, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Down here or on that rather large flipper tab. Now I do have large to extra large size hands. My fingers though are longer and slimmer, so at least for me, this is still rather comfortable. If you have much meatier hands, it might be a little bit close to that sharpened down area right there, but I really don't think it'll bite you, honestly. Going over the hardware, beautiful pivot right here. It is a captured pivot, but it's a T10, so that's cool. Larger screws there, definitely appreciate that. The body hardware, T8, wonderful, and all the hardware is steel. Two little barrel standoffs there, steel. Of course, overall the scales are titanium with the carbon inlays. Button, steel. Stop pin, steel. Of course, a little hardened steel piece. What was I missing? Oh, pocket clip. Pocket clip. Wonderfully milled titanium pocket clip. Not super thin, not cheap feeling. It definitely feels more robust than the Tucson ones that are like paper thin, and when you like kind of flick them like that, they sound like a little like tuning instrument, almost a little tuning fork. This is fit enough to where, you know, it gets the job done, but it's not thick to the point where it's adding extra weight for no reason, really. And it again looks good, has little design keys right there, and everything is well finished. It's not sharp even in that little hole. It's merely just decorative. There's nothing underneath it, honestly. You can see here that it is lefty friendly, so that is actually a T6, but there's only one of them, so I'll give it a pass. The hardware in here is very well executed. My bits, my WeHub bits, have no issue biting into them, and the depth on them is wonderful. I don't ever feel like I'm going to strip these. There are some, you know, pieces of hardware that I've interacted with before where they feel cheap and they're shallow, and like I just can't get a good bite on them to be able to either, you know, undo them or, you know, screw them down. The action on this thing has definitely changed after one little modification. After a day or so of owning this thing, I had some of the most horrendous lock stick you could ever imagine. And it was because not so much the actual plunge itself, but the tang of the blade, that spot right there where the button lock wedges itself up behind, wasn't so refined. It was honestly on the rougher side, and basically what was happening is you have two surfaces that don't have the finest finish on them, so they create a little bit of surface tension, and they kind of just like smack into each other and they hold, creating what we know as a button lock stick. So what I did was I took a very, very worn out piece of wet dry 3000, little square of sandpaper. I crumbled it. I left it in boiling water for a little bit just to like loosen up the paperback fibers of it. And I basically had it as like a little cloth. And what I did was I took apart the knife and I just kind of rounded using just very light thumb pressure. I just kind of rounded that little spot on the blade down there, so it looks a little shinier than it does coming from the factory. And then I also just kind of went over the actual plunge lock itself. That has made a humongous difference. The action on this thing is so much better now. The flipping, the pseudo detent, still wonderful, and it's a heavy blade. It really is a heavy blade, so you're gonna have to help it travel a little bit, but you can still push button, it's comfortable, light switch it, good to go. There is some jimping. The jimping's on the larger, wider side. I kind of wish it was a little bit finer, but it's not that big of a deal. It's something that you can very easily get accustomed to. Also, this little space, and what doing this little trick helped now, yeah, I can almost get it. That would have been so cool if I got it the first time. Now I can do that. Look at that. You're not supposed to do that. It wasn't meant to do that, but there is some decorative texturing milled into the blade on either side. If you have a little bit of grit on your hands, you actually take this to work and you actually use it, because honestly, like, this could be one hell of a beater knife for sure. It's extremely robust, thick behind the edge, but still slices rather well. And I did actually attempt to make a cardboard cutting video, but I couldn't figure out how to do time lapse and voiceover and all that kind of stuff, because I'm just not that tech savvy, I suppose. I'm 24 years old and I don't know how to do basic editing stuff like that. I've been too busy working instead of just tinkering on my phone. That's my fault. But I didn't really know how to do all the editing stuff, but I will say this thing, it is very comfortable. Without gloves, just as is in hand, no grime or grit on my hands. I was just blazing through all this type of cardboard material, thick and thin. I'm talking like when you go bulk grocery shopping, you come back home with thick ass produce boxes that are like the wax stuff even. This thing was blazing through it. It was wonderful. Good stuff. It did get kind of gunky a little bit. Passed it a couple times on the NAF's Co. little leather strap, and good to go right after. But now doing that tiny little fix, you can flick it. You can literally create a new deployment method that wasn't meant to be. Now, it is a little difficult for me to be consistent with it, but it is possible. And I'm just thinking here, just thinking out loud. If the texturing was maybe a little larger, a little deeper, a little sharper, of course, putting the final finish on the blade will yield a different result. But you know, maybe Remette, if you're listening, would be pretty cool if that was a intended deployment method. I can also reverse flick it. It's just my middle finger is kind of messed up right now. So I'm trying to like get in there with my skin. It is possible, and again, the blade is heavy, so it's not just super you know, lightweight where it's just gonna just shoot out. I can get it past that detent, but it's hard to get it to travel, especially being under a camera. I have like, I don't know, maybe a foot above the surface from my camera to my surface here. But that would be really cool. But that was one of the things that I kind of had a little bit of an issue with. And it could just be my unit, or it could be all across the board that people are going to be having the most disgusting lock stick you could ever imagine. Because it happened to me, right? I didn't get a perfect unit. I'm not special in any means, right? So me being a consumer, I figured, hey, I like tinkering with stuff. Took it apart, probably voided warranty. Did a little bit of finishing work. It took a minute, less than a minute maybe, right? Run everything under some hot water, remove any loose debris from the process of doing some light sanding work or polishing, finishing work. Reassembled, a little bit of Loctite here, there, wherever, and you know, it's good to go. This thing smacks out pretty freaking hard, and even now, like, I'm trying to get it, but it is possible. It just needs to be like angled down a little bit, so gravity helps you almost. But it's just kind of awkward, but it is possible. It's just something I wanted to mention. The other little issue I had with this was the final finishing sharpening on this. I haven't sharpened it. If I did, promise I wouldn't have made it look like that. Yeah, it's not too great there. Yeah, that's for sure. Could have been done by somebody who's new, right? That's what it looks like. I don't expect perfection, but here in this category of essentially $200, I expect a whole lot more than that. So that in itself is also an easy fix for me, but I think I'm trying to tell myself it's worth it doing a little you know, minute or two project with that to get some pretty sweet action in comparison to what I was dealing with before. Discovering a, you know, possible new deployment method, possible, right? It's not guaranteed, but it is possible. You know who can do it probably without modification is Jared from Knees and Knives. That dude can literally like flick anything. But I'm telling myself it's worth it to me because I have a good sharpening system that I'm accustomed to, and it's really easy to you know, fix blemishes like that. Sure, you're probably gonna have to remove a good bit of material, thickening up the edge, but I don't really think it's gonna get much thicker than this. It's a beefy boy anyway. But those are the couple little things that I had an issue with. Overall, the finish, the aesthetic, the design, the materials that they're using, incredible. Absolutely incredible for being such a young company and you know, making something like this. I really hope that you know, they take all these pointers to heart and put them towards new models or another drop of these or another batch. And again, if something like this was made, me being me, maybe something a little bit more scaled down, a little bit more internal milling, maybe something with speed holes or just for decorative purposes, or maybe just something a little bit more chill and subdued, maybe a little bit more utilitarian based. You know, they have a world of possibilities now, knowing, you know, what they're really capable of, and this is quite wonderful. You have the inlays on both sides. They're using high quality materials here for sure. The inlays are very clean and consistent. There is hardly any difference in feel there, just the slightest little bit of finishing because The titanium is a very fine bead blast, and the carbon fiber is a very high, like, satin sanded finish. So you can feel the difference in finish, but not the transition of the actual inlay itself. The look of the pivot, a little bit of texturing on the button for decorative purposes, the little hole right there, the way that they do this milling right here, all this kind of stuff. And everything meets up. It's perfectly centered, came perfectly centered. It has a little hole for lanyard people, if that's something that you like. It accommodates for lefties. Now, that space right there, it's really, really shallow, so you're going to have to crank down on it to make sure that it doesn't wiggle on you. And once it's in, it's not going anywhere. But just letting you know, if you do want to switch it for lefty, yeah, just make sure to get it down on there really tight, because you don't want it to move. It is D-shaped, so it shouldn't move on you, but you know, that is something to note. Overall, I recommend it. I really do. If you want to, you know, take that chance, I kid you not, it was a minute, maybe like a minute disassembling with the proper tools. T10, T8, T6 Torx bit, some basic cleaning equipment. I mean, if you're spending this kind of money on a knife anyways, you should probably have the basic cleaning and maintenance material anyway. But this is enthusiast territory. At this point in time, you've probably experienced things that may be better than this. Probably, who knows? Maybe you're looking at this and you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. I haven't ever spent that kind of money on a knife before. I will say, don't spoil yourself with things from WE and higher up from there, because then things like the finish of sharpening, the inconsistencies with a button lock, you're gonna spoil yourself that way. And it's okay if you do, but just know that this company hasn't been around for a long time. It's a smaller company that is trying to play with the big dogs, essentially, at this point, making something like this. And they're trying their darndest. And honestly, I'm okay with it. And I don't get paid. I don't get anything, out of, talking good about it. But, personally, me speaking, like, this knife isn't for me. It's a big knife. I'm not going to use it that often. It's thick behind the edge. The tip is much further up than I would prefer to be able to actually like use it at work comfortably. But I enjoy this knife so much for the overall quality, fit and finish, the design, and the many wonderful aspects that it does bring to the table rather well. So yeah, it's gonna stick around for a while. You guys are probably gonna see this more often. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this little review. If you did, go ahead and leave a like in this. Leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. We have a 1,000 subscriber giveaway coming up, hopefully soon. It's been like just slowing down. We're like, I think at 25 subscribers away. I'm gonna be doing a little giveaway. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing fancy, but I want to be able to give back to what is such a wonderful community. So with that all being said, link down in the description. Check it out at the very least. With that being said, have a wonderful day.